John Hope Bryan established Operation Hope back in 1992. A respected public speaker, Bryant has served as advisor to both the Clinton and Obama administrations. This is Captains of Industry. How to lead in a fear-based world. That is really the topic of Love Leadership, and I see it's made it into the top 10 best CEOs books, so it's relevant to our audience this afternoon, this evening. Can we pick up on what you mean, firstly, by a fear-based world?
Well, I think there's two things in the world. There's love and there's fear. And what you don't love, you fear. And the reason that the world is all screwed up is that most of our so-called leaders have been leading by fear. And this global economic crisis, if you think about it, it went from a financial crisis to a credit crisis to an economic crisis to really a liquidity crisis, but then it became a crisis of confidence because people just didn't believe anymore. And when you don't believe anymore, all bets are off. And so it is also matriculated into the way in which we operate our lives. You look at what we did for 20 years, certainly the last 5 years has been all about money. But what made South Africa great? What made America great? It was the power of an idea. What's CNBC if it wasn't someone's idea? What's this show if it wasn't someone's idea? Yeah, now it's the byproduct of a great idea often is money, power, and prestige in the world. But that's the byproduct. What we've done in the last 5 years is made the byproduct the product. And no wonder we hit a wall. So I've really called this recession a reset.
Now, you've been advisor to both George W. Bush and to President Barack Obama. How have they responded?
And President Clinton.
And how have they responded? I mean, they're squarely in the eye of the storm when it comes to the global financial crisis that they're facing at the moment. How do they respond to love leadership?
Well, I think in many ways they practice it. Look, President Bush, you can criticize him for a lot of legitimate things, but he did more for Africa than any president before and so far since. President Barack Obama, I think, has so far done a very, very good job. He's steadied the ship. He's trying to restore confidence. President Clinton is in a league all of his own. I mean, I think that sort of speaks for itself.
I'm certainly not going to debate the merits of the U.S. administration with you and what they have and haven't done. But I want to come back to the economic crisis that we're facing at the moment and where your love leadership is going to take the world, in your opinion, from the fear that we're facing on the global financial stage.
Well, I think it's a whole ball game. I think that, look, in this economic crisis, we treated people like transactions, not as relationships. So if we had made every mortgage loan here a bond in South Africa as if it was to our grandmother, you wouldn't have a crisis. If we had treat our employees, not telling them and dictating them, I tell you what to do, I tell you when to do it, I tell you how to do it, in which case they give you minimum compliance. And the minute you turn your back, they're sabotaging you because no one wants to be dictated to. But if you're concerned about their lives, you're concerned about their careers, you're interested in them, you ask questions, you understand God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you listen twice as much as you talk. And over time, you build a relationship with them, and they have a death in the family, and you give them some time off, and so on and so forth. Well, then you send an email on a Friday, a beautiful Friday in Johannesburg, and you say, I got this really important project. I'm really not telling you to do it, but I really rely on you and I believe in you and I would love if you do this for me. I need it done by Monday. Every time I give this speech and I ask this question, including the global forum I just did in Cape Town this week, the audience responds the same way. How's the employee respond? All their hands go up, they do it. Why? Because we have a relationship, they're inspired, there's a connection, and they stay Friday night, they come in over the weekend, and they show up on Monday on time.
Haven't some captains of industry said to you, don't people then take advantage of the situation down the line?
That's all fear. Look, fear's first cousin is laziness. Fear's best friend is greed. Fear's roommate is short-termism. And what do I get versus what do I have to give? And it's all about me and not about we. So fear is a punk. But it's a punk that we're comfortable with, it's a punk that we see every day, It's easy to do. It's short term. It's short term sort of gratification. But I just think that, and I think that history will prove that the companies who have a long-term view, a company like Coca-Cola, as an example, who not only makes a lot of money but gives a lot of money back to community. Their employees volunteer. So when you pick up a can of Coke, you actually feel good about it. I mean, it's really strange. They've actually made a commitment to return every gallon or liter of water that they misuse back.
While we're talking about companies, what is your view on BP and the situation unfolding, for which Obama's taking a lot of criticism and his management of the crisis?
Well, I mean, you're president of the United States. Of course, you're going to take some criticism, and some of it's deserved, some of it's not. But no good deed shall go unpunished. I think BP is in a very bad spot. I think that BP, as we know it, probably won't survive. It'll probably get broken up. I think they've got a credibility problem. I think that that is clear that while on paper they said safety first, their employees didn't feel that was what the priority was. They felt that profit was more important than safety. And what they didn't realize is that when you have one spill, one accident, it destroys everything. The game is over. So safety should have been, frankly, to restore your credibility, to make sure you make profits over the long term, to make sure you're wealthy. Safety should have been this is really ironic. Safety should have been the number one, number two, number three, and number four priority for BP to ensure that it's profitable. So
you don't believe that BP is going to survive? And do you feel that management has not handled this crisis well?
I don't think that they've handled it well. I think it's been ready, fire, aim. I think that it's been a lot of fear. I think that I do believe the managers are well-intentioned. The leadership is well-intentioned. But as I said, no good deed shall go unpunished. It's not about your. Somebody once told me that the wrong answer is the right one that didn't work.
So the wrong answer is the right one that didn't work.
That's right. So, and they've not been vigilant, and they have really put their foot in their mouths, which shows, I think, a lack of sensitivity. Which again, love leadership, I think, makes you put in that extra effort to understand not just what you're saying, but how is it going to be received on the other side. Give
me some tangible examples beyond Coca-Cola where love leadership, in your opinion, works.
I think U.S. Bank in the United States, during the subprime mortgage crisis, they were doing interest rates, adjustable rate interest rate mortgages like everybody else. They saw the tsunami coming. They proactively stopped their adjustable rate interest rates, fixed all the mortgages to a fixed rate, advised everybody you're going to get a lower fixed rate. The chief financial officer told the leadership, you're crazy. We're going to lose money in the short term. Luckily, the leadership said, it's not about a short-term game. Our reputation is everything. This is going to end badly. I can smell it coming around the corner. Let's do the right thing now. Well, U.S. Bank is now the fourth or fifth largest bank in America, and they did it standing still. They didn't grow. They didn't buy anybody. Just everybody fell around them, and their reputation has increased. Their stock price has increased in this market, and they're doing well as a company. I mean, I can give tons of other examples, but that's the one that just jumped right out at me.
With your experience around the U.S. and the economic problems that territory faces, what do you make of the situation currently? It's widely known that the U.S. is going to try and print their way out of this problem, and perhaps that's not the best way to handle this crisis either.
It's not the best way to handle it. It is also an almost impossible situation. What I mean by that is this is a jobless recovery. That the real unemployment is probably more like 20%, not 10%. Because based on the way people count unemployment. So it's going to be a statistical recovery, but a personal tragedy. Number two, this is not, as I've said, in my opinion, a recession. In my opinion, it's a reset. So this is not going to be over anytime soon. Here's the good news. The world needs America to succeed. Most currencies, reserves are being still held by U.S. dollars. The dollar, America's a third of the U.S. of the world economy. The U.S. consumer, people that don't know this, is 70% of the U.S. economy, which means when I'm in China giving a speech, and my friends are laughing at America's follies, I have to remind them when we're not buying, you're not building. So we're all in this thing together. So the world needs, including South Africa, including the African continent, the world needs America to win again. And so
but there are those, aren't there, who are questioning the reserve status of the US dollar and looking for alternatives.
Yeah, where are you going to go, Mars? I mean, you can look at all the alternatives you want, but when people...
Well, some are suggesting a commodity-based currency. That would be the best way to go.
Look, we're fixing a ship set to sea. So these are all nice academic conversations, but people are living in the real world. And again, this is where a place where fear actually benefits the United States, because people are going to run to the yen, they're going to run to the U.S. dollar, because that's what they know, and that is has been perceived as stability.
But in the real world, you can't print money to get yourself out of a problem, because ultimately you are just going to be devaluing your currency, and at some stage the U.S. is going to have to face that problem head on.
You're absolutely right. Here is the short-term, again, hedge for the United States. It's a $13 or $14 trillion economy, so it's not like the homeboy shopping network. I mean, it's a major economy, so we can actually print money for a little bit and still get through this. But here's the big deal: we got to get back to the power of the idea, and this is again the power of love. It's the power of the idea. It's about what made America great is, you know, Ted Turner and this thing called 24-hour news, and Steve Jobs and this thing called Apple, and you know, and CNBC, and you know, me and this thing called Operation Hope, and all these folks with these ideas, which created these great companies, Sam Walton and Walmart, all right, which then created jobs and prosperity and opportunity. Every big company was a small company. Most jobs come from a small business in the first 5 years of its innovation. We've got to get back to creating a generation of entrepreneurs and small businesses.
And how do you do that when you're facing a jobless recovery in the U.S.? As you say, this is a personal tragedy that is unfolding.
Well, rainbows after storms. I sort of think that in many ways the crisis is a blessing. I think it's a blessing all around the world, because you and I both know that 5 years ago, the world wasn't really working very well. Everybody was rampant materialism. It's all about me. What do I get? When do I get it? People felt like the individuals were larger than countries, GDPs, and companies were larger. I mean, it was just crazy and out of balance, and so it didn't work. And so, in many ways, I think this reset's a good thing. America's got to prove not that it can lead again by being great, but it can lead again by repairing its faults. And that humility, I think, will give its retain its reputation in the world. And part of it is admitting you made a mistake, admit that there's hubris and arrogance, admit that we are obsessed too much with profitability without talking about productivity.
Do you think that Obama is adopting that stance, one of humility, one of admitting that the U.S. has made a mistake?
I think he has in balance, but I also think that he's got some larger problems that are short-term in nature that he's trying to deal with. Now, I'm not going to second-guess the president. I mean, I'm an advisor to him when they want advice, and I don't think it's smart or wise or even helpful to second-guess the president. He's got the toughest job in the world. It grays your hair in 3 years, that job. But what I'm really talking about is what the world needs for it. It's not just an American solution. Africa needs a generation of entrepreneurs. You know, if you increase your GDP 1% on the African continent, it's larger than 3 times all foreign aid in this continent. And it's a hand-up strategy, not a hand-out strategy. I mean, South Africa cannot persist with 8 million taxpayers for 50 million people and 13 million of them getting grants. It's not sustainable, nor is it dignity-rich. People want to do for themselves. When I go into Alexandria, go into one of the provinces or one of the townships, I see somebody selling cell phone cards.
What is the key to promoting entrepreneurship on the African continent? Let's bring it swiftly to that discussion point.
I think we've got to restore confidence. Again, it goes back to love and fear. People have got to know that they can do for themselves. When I teach, we just launched something with Desmond Tutu in the Anglican Church about entrepreneurship and dignity and financial literacy. We got to teach people the language of money. I mean, how do you live in a free enterprise system? You don't know the rules of free enterprise. We got to do it at the lowest level. We got to bring those single mothers up. We got to bring the children up with a confidence in themselves. The first course is a course in dignity. When I look at you, I see confidence. You're not looking away. You're looking right at me. That's confidence and self-esteem. That's wealth. So it's not about being rich, fear, short-termism, money. It's about being wealthy.
How do you start with the financial literacy programs?
Well, we have
what
volunteers.
Is the ground level operation?
We've got Citigroup and Deutsche Bank and Standard Bank and a lot of institutions sending their volunteers into schools right here in South Africa, soon throughout all of Africa, teaching financial literacy, teaching a course in dignity. By the way, being a role model, and that little girl who sees you in that classroom is not only getting a course in entrepreneurship and financial literacy and the language of money and dignity, she's saying, I can be you. And when she says I can be you, she's breaking the back of poverty in her own life. There's a difference between being broke and being poor. Being broke is economic, but being poor is a disabling frame of mind and a depressed condition of your spirit, and you must vow never to be poor again. That's the first step, is to take your life back. Because if I don't like me, I'm not going to like you. I think that, so you want to talk about an American export? That's a great American export.
What traction are you realizing with the financial literacy program, Operation Hope?
We've served 1.2 million people. We've raised $900 million. I believe that's like 6 billion rand. I'm the founder. We have 10,000 Hope Corps volunteers. We have 5,000 partners. We're the largest of what we do in the U.S., and we created federal policy around financial literacy in the U.S. So this is my dream. This is my idea.
It's close to home. Having gone through your CV, neither of your parents finished school,
That's right.
but you still say that they are the cleverest people that you ever encountered.
Yeah, and they were entrepreneurs, and my mother bought and sold 5 homes. My dad has owned a business for 54 years. Now, it was also a great lesson in financial literacy because my dad made it but couldn't keep it. And my mother made money, but proved that it wasn't about what you made, but what you kept that was important. So it was a great lesson in financial literacy. My mother, by the way, went back to school at age 62 and got her high school equivalency and matriculated. So she's just an amazing human being and a great role. She also told me she loved me every day of my life, so that helped.